All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Crypto 101 podcast. I'm your host, joined as always by my co-host, Brendan Veeman. How's it going, Brendan?
Hey, it's going good, Bryce. I'm excited for this one. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, you're a big Solana fanboy. I've been a Solana guy for years. It's just been an incredible ecosystem, and when everybody kind of wrote them off years ago, they doubled down, they tripled down, they continued to hire, they pursued and persisted through pain. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And guess what? In 2023, Solana was one of the best performing tokens in the crypto market, and probably the best token in the top 25 of the liquid trading tokens. Something like 890%. I just checked. So very excited to see just not only the growth in kind of the trading markets and the retail markets, but more importantly, a big engine underneath, which is the institutional growth. And so we wanted to dive into this and kind of hear from the horse's mouth. So we brought on Nick Ducoff, who's joining us today on the podcast, who is the head of institutional growth with Solana. So Nick, welcome to the Crypto 101 podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. When did you join the Solana Foundation, and how have things changed maybe since the day you joined?
Yeah, I joined the Solana Foundation recently. I think I'm among, if not the newest member of the team. I joined in the second half of the year, right around Breakpoint. I had been doing some consulting with the foundation prior to joining the team full time. And it's been a fun run. How have things changed since I joined? Everybody wants to take my phone calls now.
Yeah,
which is great.
I love that. It's funny. I mean, when the markets turn, I mean, like you joined in August, that was at the lows. I mean, that was the dead lows almost of a bear market and contraction in the altcoins. And what was it that kind of made you, leave? I want to hear about kind of what you were doing prior to Solana. What made it about crypto so special, maybe about Solana so special, that was like, you know what, I'm going to dive in, and who cares if it's a bear market for a year or 2 years? Because at that point, prices didn't even turn around yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had been at a venture fund prior to joining the Solana Foundation, and the most interesting projects that I had been talking to were all building on Solana. And when I really kind of dug deep to understand why that was, and understand the underlying technology that the Solana blockchain offers, it became clear that this was just a superior technology choice. And you know, the saying, which is untrue, that if you build it they will come, that is not a true saying. But in the case of Solana, the ecosystem just has been incredibly resilient, and they've been continuing to just deliver. And I think as folks became more and more aware of the great technology underlying the protocol, and then as more liquidity and volume came to the protocol, it has become, compounding effects to make it what it is today.
And can you comment on what all these different people and projects said about why they were choosing Solana as opposed to other crypto projects?
Sure. So Solana is a high-performance layer 1 blockchain that has pioneered extreme speed and throughput at web scale without sacrificing security or decentralization. So it can process over 65,000 transactions per second with a block time of sub 400 milliseconds. So this is just blazing fast and able to handle a ton of transaction volume. And this is all along with extremely low fees. So Solana has deterministic fees, which today at around $100 a SOL is 0.0005 cents per transaction. And I think that blows people's minds who are not as familiar with Solana, who may even have some familiarity with L2s. I mean, even on L2s, you're paying a few cents, 10 cents, depending on mainnet Gwei. Solana is crazy cheap to transact on.
Yeah, I saw that Solana passed Ethereum in daily transactions and in daily volume the other day. And that was kind of a crazy thing to see. I think even on the NFT side of things, Solana is getting a ton of attention for all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, a lot of those NFT traders, it kind of hurts profitability when you're paying 20, $25 per transaction. They go to Solana, they pay a few cents. Suddenly those profit margins completely open up, right?
No, I think that's exactly right. And in Q4, I think there was over 40 million average daily transactions on Solana. And as far as unique fee payers, I think that number was close to 500,000 in December alone.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just crazy, like to be able to trade for such low cost. And Brendan, you kind of mentioned the NFT traders or like the retail crypto traders, but think about an institution who's making millions of trades a day. I mean, there can't be any legitimate high frequency trading yet on Ethereum. It's cost prohibitive. You get laughed out the room if you went and pitched an HFT on using Ethereum. But Solana, I mean, now you have real firms like Jump, for instance, high frequency trading firm, very active in the development. Tell us a little bit about Nick, what it's like, kind of working with these institutions. What are they kind of leveraging Solana for? Is it providing liquidity mostly to retail markets? Is it tokenizing assets? What are they really thinking Solana's compelling for?
Well, I think, there are myriad use cases, and I think that is one of the strongest attributes of the Solana blockchain is that, and I mean this in a positive way, is the generosity, like that it is a generic blockchain and can be useful in a variety of different
general purpose
utilities. That's right. And so, like in the institutional RWA vertical, like there are great examples like Ondo and Maple and Treasuries that are taking different approaches to offering treasuries on chain. In the private credit space, there are folks like Credix in Latin America and Bridge Split in private credit that are doing really great work. In real estate, there's organizations like Homebase that is tokenizing residential real estate, and Empire DAO, which is tokenizing like a commercial REIT. And then folks like Etherfuse, which is tokenizing Mexican sovereign bonds, and the list goes on and on.
Wow.
And those are just some RWA examples. And then you've got large institutions that I'm not able to talk about all of the work that they're doing to protect the confidentiality of that, but really interesting things that only the speed and throughput and cost that Solana enables allows for.
Yeah, and when you kind of mention some of these companies that are leveraging it for RWAs, this is kind of a new term that's been getting thrown around quite a bit. You and I actually met at the Bridges it was called the Bridge, hosted by the TIE, incredible conference. But like, I couldn't sit through one panel without hearing the term RWA. And which, hey, I'm all about it. I think it's great. But can you kind of walk through for the people what real world assets, bringing them on chain, what does that do? Why is that kind of now such a big trend?
Sure. So markets want to be 24/7, 365, right?
Yes. Money at the speed of life.
That's right.
Your life doesn't stop on the weekends.
But, I'm sure you saw some of the jokes this weekend. Last week, obviously, was a big week for the blockchain and crypto space with the first Bitcoin ETFs being launched. And there was some price movement, I think, on Friday night. I can't remember, price dropped. And everybody was saying, "Ooh, I can't wait to buy the dip Tuesday morning when the market opens," right? Of course, there's a million different ways to go buy Bitcoin, 24/7, but that's kind of the point. When you self-custody and have access to control over your crypto, you are not constrained by, the same limitations that traditional markets may have. And so we're starting to see innovation around, bringing more assets that are typically traded either over the counter on public markets or, in private markets to the blockchain with global liquidity, 24/7, 365 trading, easy Forex swapping, using stable coins, all the benefits that the blockchain provides. And, again, these are assets, funds, ETFs, REITs, long tail collectibles like art. I've seen watches. I've seen whiskey and wine. Like anything that is traded in markets today can be traded on chain. And I think markets want to be 24/7, 365. They want access to global liquidity. and crypto and the blockchain free the markets of a lot of the constraints of traditional infrastructure.
Yeah, it's incredible because it really allows you, like we said, to extend that same idea of, you could buy Bitcoin anywhere, you could send it anywhere at any time for virtually, very small fee. Extend that to Solana, and then extend that to all of your assets. That you're never going to be constrained by the man. You're never going to be constrained by some system, some weekend, some holiday. I mean, literally anything. You always are going to be online, and I think kind of in a world where it's ever growing, of importance to be online and to be available and to have your assets when you need them, wherever you need them, and it's incredible. So I'm really excited. And outside of RWAs, where else are you kind of seeing an uptick in growth on Solana? What what are you and your team kind of track? Maybe what are some of the key things that are growing that you guys are excited about?
Yeah, so I think, going back to an earlier comment, one of the exciting things about Solana is that there's broad interest and activity and utility like across verticals. And that's because Solana is an order of magnitude faster and cheaper than L2s. And we have devs all over the world building on, testing, and improving on the protocol every day, launching new projects. And so I think for Solana, that diversity of utility is a strength. And with respect to what's happening in other verticals outside of institutional, I just love attending our weekly internal updates because there's so many interesting things happening across the Solana ecosystem. So, for example, Helium and Hive Mapper in decentralized physical infrastructure, Visa and WorldPay and payments, Shopify and Boba Guys and loyalty commerce. We just sponsored Art Basel in Miami for NFTs and creators. The Saga phone on mobile has kind of taken a life of its own. And so, as you can see, there's just tons of exciting developments across the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that's just that there's so much happening on Solana right now, and I kind of want us to backtrack just a little bit before we move forward. But going back to kind of the start of this year, like walk us through what led Solana to such a historic recovery last year. Was it just the idea that Solana was like the best tech? I mean, Solana kind of toppled most other cryptocurrencies in this process. I mean, when you look at on-chain metrics, off-chain metrics, there's a ton of attention kind of coming that way. So I guess from your unique opinion, what really led Solana to putting itself in that position?
Yeah, so I think I want to give credit to the many great developers that were building, in the bear over the course of 2023. Coming out of the Breakpoint conference in October, I think the broader crypto and blockchain ecosystem really coalesced around the idea of Solana as being, that kind of most credible high performance layer one blockchain with lightning fast speed and throughput and extremely low cost, deterministic fees, along with resilient and robust security and performance. And that was coupled with events like Jito's airdrop and meme coins like Bonk that have kind of driven more interest and liquidity and volume on Solana. As I mentioned, there were 40 million transactions in Q4 and nearly 200,000 daily active fee payers. So this is happening across a pretty deep base of users. And there's also a ton of excitement around upcoming developments in 2024, like token extensions, which was known as Token 22, as well as Jump's new validator client that they're working on, the Fire Dancer validator client, which will make Solana only the third blockchain with multiple validator clients. So I think it's a function of we saw this in telecom. There used to be like the baby bells. There were like tons. Every kind of major market had its own telecom provider, and then that consolidated. And now there's whatever Verizon, T-Mobile. I don't even know if Sprint's still around. There's a handful of
They got acquired.
of providers, and I think you're seeing that in the blockchain space where liquidity wants to be aggregated. And I think L2s kind of balkanize liquidity. And by the way, like I have very much been an ETH maxi for a very long time. My first MetaMask transaction was March of 2018. So like I've been there as part of that community for a very long time, and I'm still a huge fan of Ethereum in the community. But I think what Solana brings to the table in terms of the technology and also the community and ecosystem is just unrivaled by any other blockchain.
Yeah. It's incredible just to see the like you said, kind of the general purpose nature of it, and there being so many sectors. And one company that you mentioned was Helium, and it's amidst many other phenomenal companies. But I'd love for you to kind of talk about Helium in a sense, because this is one that's been getting just a ton of traction, a ton of excitement, and it's really only possible on a platform like Solana. I think they kind of tried to do it on Ethereum. There wasn't enough throughput. It just got bogged down. And it's decentralizing physical infrastructure. Um, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I am not a Helium expert, but the kind of the top level is that Helium has um, wireless transmitters that are operated in a decentralized manner. So basically, anybody can buy the hardware, put it up on on their roof or whatever, and create an access point to the Helium network, and they get paid in Helium tokens to be providers of capacity for that network. And it was originally launched for Wi-Fi, and now it is also available for mobile. And so they recently announced a $20 nationwide all-you-can-eat mobile plan, where if you are a user of the mobile network, you can also use your phone's capacity to provide um, spectrum to the network as well and get compensated. So I've seen online that people are like making more than the $20, which is, I pay like $150, I think, for my cell phone plan. So $20 is a pretty great bargain on its face. And then I've seen people that by providing access to their phone's network are making money. So they're actually profiting from getting, free cell service essentially from Helium, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because I had a buddy who called me the other day and he's like, "Hey, I'm using Helium and it's paying for my cell service and I'm running Helium services and it's awesome, man. Like you got to try this out. I just got married. It's great. It's working good for the family." And you just kind
Family
of like
plan.
going, yeah, he had this like revelation about how useful DePin is and kind of the direction that it can go. And so we had this really cool conversation. He was stoked on it because this was his first experience with DePin, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people, and he had this really positive experience, which was cool to kind of get to see it from someone else's perspective and from someone else's lens. And I kind of think that that's where we're at with DePin right now. Is we're really just at the start of it, kind of similar to the RWA space. And I think that DePin has so many more applications and that it can evolve into something so much greater than just what it's being used for now. And I think Helium is kind of just the first project of many. So I'm curious, are there any other projects? And I know you mentioned a few of them earlier, but are there any that are out now that you kind of see along the same path as maybe Helium?
Or
Or
even
maybe,
another big like enterprise or institution that might be doing something like T-Mobile is doing similar kind of growth hack in that way.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so in the DePin space, and this is the whole promise of the ownership economy, right? That
Mm.
we the people can be providers, to the global network in whatever vertical it may be, and then be compensated for participating, in that network, as opposed to a small number of global corporations kind of capturing an inordinately large piece of that pie. Another example is Hive Mapper. So Hive Mapper
Very cool.
is a device that you put in your windshield and it records road and traffic conditions. So similar to Waze, that's on your phone. And they're building, a de novo Google Maps where by logging mileage, of recording, you get compensated in the Hive Mapper token. Um, and Uber drivers, big rig drivers, folks like that are on the road all day are participating in that, and it's really creating an incredible open source and valuable um, resource for drivers all around the world.
Yeah, man, there's got to be a future where we decentralize Uber and Lyft. I think about every single time I'm in an Uber, the driver complains about how much.
There is a Solana Uber. It's called what is it called? Let's see if I've got this somewhere on my phone.
I got to check it out.
Oh gosh.
Because it's such a huge opportunity. I mean, people are always complaining that Uber's taking too big of a cut, but in reality, they're just a matching engine. Teleport. I'm writing that one down.
So
all right, Crypto 101 listeners, get on Teleport and catch a Uber ride with a Solana bag holder. No, just kidding. No, but it's such an opportunity. The economics, work so much more in favor of the consumer and the producer when you don't have a middleman who's just kind of taking a cut. So I think, like you mentioned, like the real magic of all this is like the ownership economy. And so being able to have, in a sense, an open source algorithm that's the matching engine that both people could kind of get into, and both have a peer-to-peer facilitation of any sort of transaction, which I think is going to be a big piece of the future. And I kind of want to pivot the conversation back to this institutional aspect of crypto. And I know you joked earlier about kind of people picking up your phone call now. And that wasn't always the case. And it's probably a combination of, the prices going up and the market just getting a little bit more confidence, but also these Bitcoin ETFs. And this is a real big deal. It's been talked about quite a bit, but does that change your day to day now that you have the likes of Fidelity and BlackRock, and maybe Vanguard comes around in a year or two? But does that kind of change your day to day now that you have some big players in the market?
I don't know that it changes my day to day. Having been in blockchain for a long time, these are all important milestones along the road to global adoption, but we're still in the incredibly early innings of this. I think I saw yesterday that Circle shared that they've got 2.7 million wallets with $10 in it, which is a remarkable achievement. But when you think about that, like I'm a half dozen of those at least, and there are 8 billion people on the planet, and less than a fraction of 1% of people have $10 of USDC, and USDC being one of the world's most used stablecoins, being like a fundamental building block to accessing kind of global DeFi payments, et cetera. We're still in incredibly early innings. I did see that 600 million in net inflows came into those Bitcoin ETF products in their first week of trading. And, that's not nothing. That's closer to $1 billion than it is to zero. And, so that's good. And, these asset managers haven't really even turned on their distribution yet. So there should be a lot more behind that over the course of the year. And, I think the first application was filed a decade ago. So I know this has taken just a ton of work and grit and commitment from so many people in the ecosystem to get this across the line. And I know those same people are very committed to promoting this product and making it successful. I'll say, as a crypto native myself, I'm a fan of self-custody, but I recognize that good. But I recognize that isn't practical for a lot of retail and a lot of institutional investors. And the ETF does give, day one, billions of people around the world an easier way to access the asset class, even if they're not holding the asset themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this was something that was seriously a decade in the making. I mean, people have been waiting for this thing for so long, and the moment's finally here. And so, there's probably a good chunk of people out there that are now kind of sitting there saying, hey, this is great. Like, we've been waiting for this kind of institutional and full on adoption. But now that we've had the ETFs get approved, what other major milestones do we have to look forward to? So, is there any on the radar that you kind of have from an institutional growth perspective that you're looking forward to seeing?
Boy, I think, it'll be good when there's some regulatory clarity in the United States. Other markets have kind of moved a bit ahead of the United States in terms of their willingness to, innovate and allow for development within their blockchain ecosystem. I think the U.S. is a little behind there, and so whether it's stable coins, which might be the first legislation, or how the SEC ultimately ends up regulating tokens. I know Coinbase. I read in the Wall Street Journal that they're asking for summary judgment. I believe tomorrow on their case. So how that pans out, I think will be another big milestone and will allow for more innovation around how the blockchain is used to help create more assets that can be accessed by those billions of people around the world that may not have access to certain products.
Yeah, and I think the big thing about having clear regulation is that this encourages more institutional money to get in, and that's kind of the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that for retail, it is actually pretty easy for the average retail investor to get in now. You can go to Coinbase. I mean, heck, now you can even buy from wallets. I see that like MetaMask, I think, has PayPal integrations. It's really easy now to get your hands on Bitcoin and most cryptos as a retail investor. But I think what clear regulation will do is that'll kind of really open up the floodgates for that institutional money, the big money, the smart money to more freely kind of be involved in the crypto space.
Yeah, and it'll allow a lot of these businesses to even operate onshore. I mean, so many of them are going offshore, and think about offshore businesses are going to be offshore profits and tax revenue. And it's like you think the government's just dropping a huge ball right now when you realize, I mean, this is a black hole for liquidity. Like, why don't you want to, try and capture as much market share as possible instead of the bad guys or the competition or whatever? But I'm not a government guy. I couldn't fathom what's going on in their minds. Too complex regulation. I hope it comes. I hope it's good regulation.
Yeah.
Call your senators, call your congressmen, let them know that you just want positive crypto policy. But Nick, while we still have you, I'm just curious. I mean, you haven't been always on the investment side. You've also been a builder and you've been a founder before. Can you tell us a couple secrets for those of us who are out there, maybe entrepreneurs in the crypto market or building our own companies? You've obviously gotten to a point where you've achieved a lot of success. So what did it take to become successful?
Well, I don't know about that, but I've worn a lot of different hats. So I started my career as a securities lawyer. Then I became a founder and did a couple startups of my own. And then I got to put on the venture capital hat and see the market through that lens. Now, of course, at the Solana Foundation. I think if you think about it in terms of like a hierarchy, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like the base level is you've just got to work harder than anybody else. Like that is a fundamental foundational layer. Even if you get towards the top of that pyramid and have like the best strategy and the best smarts and all that other good stuff and luck, you still need to work harder than everyone else in order to win. As you move up that kind of hierarchy, I think you want to be working hard on the right things. So having kind of market selection is really important. So making sure that you're choosing a market that wants whatever it is that you're building. And people talk about product market fit, and I think most people focus on the product. Like if you go Google product market fit, almost every article you read will be about like A/B testing and like refining your product. And I think a lot of people make a big mistake there, in that they're not solving for the market side of the product market fit equation. You can always just change markets or choose a different market. And I think where you start is really important in terms of market selection. So now you're working hard, you're working on the right problem, like in the right market. You want to be surrounding yourselves with people that are 10 times smarter than you. So that's ultimately how you're going to get leverage, is by surrounding yourself with amazing team members. That's one of my favorite things about the Solana Foundation, is just the team here is completely stacked. And then when you think about the leverage that the Solana Foundation gets, we work in service of the ecosystem and the community. So there's thousands of active developers and community members, tens of thousands all over the world. And being able to support them every day and kind of support their brilliance and their innovation and allow them to create and build new things is a real privilege. And so same as an entrepreneur, is surround yourself with brilliant people, free them to do great work, allow them to get as much leverage as they can, to go execute and build great things in the market. And then I think you've got hard work, you've got market selection, you've got leverage with amazing people, and then at the end of the day, you still need to have a little luck. And that's something that I didn't fully appreciate, I think, when I was younger. I think I thought that there was more in my control, and I'm stoic.eth and stoically.soul. Like I'm have come to learn that there is a lot in our locus of control, and we've got to do everything we can in that domain. But there's also a lot that isn't in our control, that is outside of our control. And at the end of the day, the chips just got to fall in your favor, even if you do everything else right.
That was before you go off on the next question. I just got to say that was like the best answer I could have ever bargained for. way better. I thought it was going to be not nearly as good of an answer. Very thorough. So appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the crypto space is becoming increasingly more robust, and with that, there's so many people, so many projects to kind of look up and look forward towards. Is there someone that comes to the top of your mind when you admire someone in the crypto space?
Well, so who I admire in the crypto space, this may sound a bit trite, but it's Satoshi Nakamoto. What an incredibly cool unsolved mystery. Publishing the Bitcoin white paper and just ghosting everyone is like the ultimate mic drop, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll ever know who we owe this huge debt of gratitude to, but I really do believe that his or her disappearance, their absence, has created the space to let the blockchain become something that again, kind of we all have inherited and can own, and build on together. And that makes you an owner, that makes me an owner, and then we have that opportunity and responsibility to continue to make things more composable and useful, for those that follow, and the benefits, of course, flow back for doing that. And I think that is kind of the kernel of the ownership economy, and I think we owe that to Satoshi.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to kind of tie a bow on today's episode. Nick, I'm just curious if people want to follow along and stay in touch. Where should people go? Is stoic.eth. I know you mentioned. Are you on X or Twitter? Is Solana got a Discord?
Yep. So I am Nick Ducoff, NickDucoff on Twitter, and I'm Stoic on Warpcast, or Farcaster as it is sometimes affectionately known. That's what it was called when it started. And then, of course, you can follow Solana Foundation on LinkedIn and Twitter. Would love to see you at our events. We have events all over the world all the time, and welcome all newcomers to the Solana ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us and spending some time giving us your wisdom. And hopefully everybody at home was diligent, took some notes, and is better off for coming to the show today. So without further ado, we'll let you go. Thank you so much. And for everybody at home watching, come back same time, same place next week. Got another great guest.